Is this a creepy story? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it a scary story? Well, that is up to you. There's a stretch of Wyoming highway so forgotten it doesn't show up on most GPS maps. Route 23. Just asphalt and prairie for 100 miles in any direction, and if you drive it long enough, between the hours of dusk and dead midnight, you'll pass a small neon sign flickering in the dark. Whalebone Bar. The only bar for miles. A place that shouldn't exist, but somehow always does. This is the story of Claire Monroe, 23 years old, drifting west, trying to outrun something she never talks about. And on the night she pulled over to ask for directions, she found herself clocking in for her first, and maybe last, shift at Whalebone Bar. I was just supposed to ask for directions, but the man behind the bar, said his name was Ed, offered me a job instead. You look like someone who needs to disappear for a bit. You any good with a bar rag and a smile? He said. Claire shrugged. One night wouldn't hurt, right? Besides, something about the place felt inevitable. Ed showed Claire around, how the taps worked, how to clean the glasses in the wash station. The bar feels larger than it looked outside. Dim amber lighting from old glass sconces flickers softly. Shadows stretch and lean strangely. The jukebox skips every few songs, like it's remembering something it forgot. It was a little after 5 p.m., and they were the only two in the bar. Don't worry. Soon enough, you will be so busy, you won't have time to think, he said, with a toothy grin. Busy? This place is in the middle of nowhere. Heck, I don't remember passing a single building, farmhouse, or even a car for the last 100 miles. Then it happened. The little bell above the door jingled as the door opened. A man walks in, wearing a full World War II infantry uniform, pristine except for the dirt and dried blood across his chest. He looks around like he's scanning a battlefield. His boots leave muddy footprints. Evenin', Lieutenant. Same as usual? Ed asked. The soldier, with eyes forward, but somehow looking very distant, replied, Yes, sir. Still waiting on orders. Ed slides him a shot of amber liquid. The soldier raises it stiffly, drinks, then retreats to a corner table. His back is to the wall. Claire was standing behind the bar the whole time. Is that a costume? She whispered to Ed. Sure. Let's call it that, he replied. She didn't know what to make of that. The person in the uniform was younger than her, but yet that is an old-time uniform. Do people in Wyoming cosplay? She thought to herself. She didn't have long to ponder as the door opened again. A woman walks in, barefoot, wearing a dripping wedding dress. Her skin is pale blue, with a tint of gray. Water drips from her hem, and puddles under her. "She's soaking wet. Should I grab a towel?" "No need. She likes it that way," Ed said quietly to her. The woman glides to the bar. Her mascara is smudged and her veil sticks to her face. She stares into the mirror behind the bar, seemingly talking to it, not Claire. "Do you think he'll come this time? I waited on that bridge for hours. It was supposed to be forever," she said softly. I don't know. Did he say he would meet you here?" Claire replied. "Everyone ends up here eventually. That's what they said. So I waited, and when the headlights came, they didn't stop." Claire's attention shifted from the woman to the door as it opened again. A trucker walks in, tall and stocky, denim jacket stained with oil and soot. Where his eyes should be, only dark, empty sockets. Yet he smiles warmly. "Evening, coffee, if it's hot," to Claire, sensing her stare. "Don't worry, sweetheart, still see better than most." Claire froze for a moment. You don't have eyes?" "Nah, gave those up around mile marker 19 in exchange for better vision," he quickly replied. Claire steps over to Ed and quietly says, "Okay, what is this? Are these people? Actors? Is this some kind of prank?" Ed didn't flinch. He just kept cleaning the glass he was holding smoothly and steadily as he gathered his thoughts. "You ever hear of the thin place, Claire?" "The what?" Ed finally puts the glass down on the bar and turns and looks her in the eyes. "It's where the veil's thin, between here and everywhere else. This bar's got a way of attracting folks who are stuck in between." Claire looks around. The bar is packed now, suddenly full. People she didn't see come in. A miner coughing up dust and soot, hands blistered from work he's not done with. A teenage girl with a blood-stained prom dress and glass shards in her heels. A man with frostbite still on his cheeks, sipping a beer like it's the best thing in the world. They all raise their drinks in quiet thanks or sorrow. They all glance at Claire, like they know something she doesn't. "Okay, no, this isn't normal. None of this is normal. You're all," she stammers out. "Dead?" "You were gonna say dead." "Nah, we ain't that lucky. We're just waiting," the trucker replied to her question. "Everyone's got unfinished business, Claire. Sometimes the road don't lead home. Sometimes it leads here," Ed said warmly. It felt like a dream, or a memory, or a warning I didn't remember receiving. And yet, no one seemed surprised by me being there, like I was expected, like I was the last missing piece of the puzzle. The jukebox skips again. It plays an old Johnny Cash song in reverse. "You'll see soon enough, we all do. The first round's just the beginning," the woman in the wedding dress said. For the first time, she was looking directly into Claire's eyes, and not her own reflection in the mirror. Claire was trembling at this point, and grips the bar for balance, the glass in her hand rattling, as the jukebox distorts, and laughter erupts from a dark corner. But no one is there. "Claire, that coffee, please," the trucker reminded her. She turns around and grabs a cup and pours hot coffee into it. With the cup in hand, she turns around and slides it across the bar to the trucker. The bar is now humming, not with music, but energy, not loud but charged. People speak in murmurs, and Claire feels as though the walls themselves are listening. Every time she glances at the clock, the hands are in the same position. Time felt wrong, like it wasn't ticking forward, just spinning in circles. The faces around me blurred at the edges, some smiling, some still like wax figures, but always watching, always drinking. Claire finds herself refilling the soldier's drink, even though she doesn't remember him finishing it. "Can I ask, what war?" she asked him. "Second World, France. Took a round in the leg, crawled into a ditch, prayed harder than I ever had," he replied as he gripped his new drink. "Did you survive?" "That's the question, ain't it?" He knocks the drink back, eyes twitching as if he's seeing something far away, something still happening. "I keep thinking I'll wake up, hear the whistles, smell the smoke, get my orders, but the only orders I get now are drinks." He walks away from the bar to one of the chairs along the wall and sits down. Claire walks by a teenage girl sitting cross-legged on the pool table, wearing a tattered pink prom dress. Her tiara is cracked, her lipstick smeared in a permanent smile. "Hey, new girl, wanna dance?" "Maybe later. You okay up there?" Claire asked. "I died in the gymnasium. Well, almost died. They pulled the plug a week later," she stated. What? This place is way better than a hospital. I mean, it smells worse, but at least there's whiskey. And ghosts. Though I guess I'm one too, right? She laughs like glass breaking. Something inside Claire tightens. This place, She doesn't know what to think. Is she dreaming and going to wake up soon? The thing is, although it does not make sense, she is calm about it, accepting it as fact. Claire brings a glass to the end of the bar where an old miner sits, face lined with soot and time, hands shaking around a chipped mug. His eyes are red from coughing. "You need water?" she asks. "Ain't no water down there, only dust. I've been trapped in the shaft since '86. Caved in, just like that. I remember the silence. Thought it was hell at first. Then I heard voices." "Voices?" The miner leans in closer to Claire. From above, or maybe below. Hard to tell when you're buried alive. He takes a sip, leaving a black smear on the glass. Claire stares, frozen. It disappears the moment she blinks. Claire turns, startled. The eyeless trucker is suddenly behind her, quiet as smoke. "They're starting to get curious about you," the trucker said. "What do you mean?" "You still got breath in your lungs. You don't belong here yet. Makes them nervous." He scratches the side of his head as in embarrassed. "Yet?" Claire asked. Old Ed knows. This place chooses people, picks them up like a hitchhiker on a dead road. Just a matter of when you realize you're not the one driving. Claire steps away, hands trembling. She ducks into a corner booth and puts her head down. The voices around her grow louder, muffled and echoing like underwater. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The floor shifted under my feet like I was dreaming. Only the fear was real, I know that. And the eyes, so many eyes watching. A man has appeared across from her, early 40s, clean-shaven, wearing a charcoal suit that's soaked at the sleeves. His fingers tap the table in slow, rhythmic beats. "Jesus, you scared me," she cried out. "You called out, didn't you?" The man replied calmly. "What?" with an expression of confusion on her face. "Before you got here, in your car, you said, 'I don't want to do this anymore.'" "How do you know that?" "I said the same thing. Drove off a cliff just past Devil's Notch. They never found the body, only the car, crumpled like a soda can. I've been here since. You're saying I'm dead? I'm saying you're close enough to hear the other side whisper, and once you hear it, it never quite stops. Claire backs away. The lights flicker. The jukebox lets out a distorted wail. Glasses rattle across the counter. Ed calls out to the bar. "All right, folks, let's give the girls some air. First night's always the hardest." The crowd murmurs. One by one, they turn away, but some still stare. Always someone staring. I told myself I'd leave. Get in my car, drive back the way I came. But I couldn't remember where I'd parked. Couldn't even remember turning the engine off. She walks toward the exit, but every time she reaches the door, it's different. Longer, farther, warped. Claire hadn't realized it yet, but the bar wasn't letting her go. Not until it was finished with her. The bar seems quieter now, but not in a peaceful way. The energy is still there, like a storm's pressure before the lightning hits. The kind of silence that screams just below the skin. Claire stands behind the bar alone. Ed is nowhere in sight. I didn't see Ed leave, didn't hear a door open, but suddenly I was alone behind the bar, and something was calling. Claire hears a faint noise, a thudding. Soft, repetitive, like someone knocking from far away. It's coming from the far wall behind the shelves of liquor. She reaches behind the bottles and runs her hand along the wood, finds a seam she hadn't noticed before, a nearly invisible door. She presses. It opens with a low groan, revealing a narrow, unlit hallway. It didn't feel like I found the door. It felt like the door found me. The hallway is impossibly long. Bare wooden floors, exposed beams above. A single swinging bulb buzzes at the ceiling. The thudding continues. Closer now. More frantic. Claire walks slowly. Her footsteps echo even though the floor is soft with dust. She stops in front of a door marked only with a brass number, 0. Inside, she finds the back room. It's a windowless chamber. Warm. Almost too warm. The walls are lined with Polaroid photographs. Hundreds, maybe thousands, pinned like trophies. Every photo is of someone behind the bar, pouring drinks, wiping counters, smiling, or screaming. Claire steps closer. Her hand shakes as she scans row after row. "What is this?" she says aloud. Some faces are familiar. The soldier, the bride, the prom girl. But they aren't seated patrons in these pictures. They're working, wearing the black shirt Claire now wears. Some photos are scratched out, as if clawed in rage. Some are burned at the edges. Some have two of the same person, once smiling, once horrified. Then Claire sees it, centered, unmistakable. Her own face. Same uniform, same posture, same bar behind her. But her expression is empty, hollow-eyed, her skin pale like wax. I hadn't taken that photo. Not yet. Then behind her she hears a sudden click, a Polaroid camera shutter. Claire spins around. No one's there. But she feels it. Someone just took her picture. "Everyone finds this room eventually," Ed says to her from the doorway. Claire turns. Ed stands in the doorway, calm, holding a glass of bourbon like he never left. "What the hell is this? Why is my face on that wall?" "Same reason all of us are. We took a wrong turn, got caught in the fog, and wound up here," Ed explains calmly. "I didn't sign up for this." "Sure you did. When you pulled off the road, when you walked through that door, when you said yes." Claire backs away as Ed steps inside. "This place doesn't steal people, Claire. It gives them a choice. You were on the edge, didn't even realize how close. And now you're here, in between." He gestures to the photos. "Everyone works a shift, some for a day, some for eternity. It all depends on how much you're carrying." Claire stares at the scratched Polaroids. What happened to them? They tried to run, broke the rules. "What rules?" she asks desperately. "Don't open the wrong door. Don't stay past the toll. And never, ever try to leave during last call." Suddenly, the room grows colder, the lights dim. A figure appears behind the Polaroid wall, just a shadow, writhing behind the thin wood like it's alive. The scratched photos twitch. Claire backs away. "I need to get out of here." "Not yet. You've still got work to do," Ed explains. Claire runs for the hallway, passing Ed. The walls stretch as she moves. The door back to the bar is miles away now, or feels like it. She bursts through, into the bar, but it's not the same. The bar is empty. Every stool is turned upside down, chairs stacked, lights out. A red exit sign buzzes above the front door. She runs to it, pulls it open. Nothing, just blackness, pitch void, as if the world ends at the doorway. I didn't understand yet. The bar was more than a building. It was a place between beats, between breaths, between who I was and who I was becoming. Claire turns around. All the patrons are suddenly back, watching, silent, and her photo has now been moved from the back room to a spot above the register, dead-eyed, still. Her shift has begun. The bar hums again, but now it's different, not busy, not alive. It's like the entire room is holding its breath. The clock above the jukebox ticks, but the second hand never moves. It just shivers. When I stepped back into the bar, everyone was waiting. Every single patron had returned to their seat, eyes forward, drinks full, like they knew something I didn't. Claire stands behind the bar now, her name tag pinned crookedly on her shirt. She doesn't remember putting it on. It simply appeared. The jukebox clicks and stops mid-song. The lights dim to candlelight levels, casting long, living shadows. No one speaks. Claire leans toward Ed, whispering, "What's happening?" "It's almost time," he states. "Time for what?" "Midnight." The hands on the bar clock both point straight up. 12. The chime doesn't ring. Instead, a low, deep bell toll, not from the clock, not from anywhere visible. 1 beat, 2, 3, 4. Each toll sends a soft vibration through the glasses behind the bar. A few patrons flinch. One cries quietly. The bride covers her ears and begins to hum. Ed raises a glass. Everyone else follows. To the lost. To the ones who couldn't find their way home. To the ones who never knew they were gone. And to the ones just passing through. Claire doesn't raise her glass at first. Everyone stares at her. Not with anger, with expectation. She picks it up. Her hand trembles. To the road, everyone said in unison. Everyone drinks. Some sip, some chug. Some pour it down their chest like they've forgotten how mouths work. One man crushes the glass in his bare hand and bleeds black onto the floor. Then, as quickly as it began, it ends. Glasses down, heads bowed. Claire breathes heavily. Her skin feels electric. The air is thick, like breathing in fog. The shadows on the wall seem to flicker, out of sync with the lighting. "What the hell was that?" she asks Ed. "A reminder." "Of what?" Ed locks eyes with her, really focusing on her. That not everything dead stays gone, and not everything living belongs where it thinks it does. A figure approaches the bar. Not a regular. Claire hadn't seen him before. A man in an old conductor's coat, face smeared with ash, eyes wide with something between madness and truth. He leans close. "You hear it yet?" the conductor asked. "Hear what?" "The whistle. It comes for all of us. Some get a train, some get a tunnel, some get a goddamn bar off Route 23. He walks away laughing and disappears before reaching the door. Just gone. This should have made her feel confused or unsure, but it just felt banal. Just an average experience at Bale Bone Bar. Claire glances toward the back bar mirror. Her reflection isn't hers. It's the photo version of her. Still gray, dead eyes, expressionless. It didn't blink when I did. Didn't move when I moved. It just watched me and smiled, slowly. The door creaks open. A man enters, early 30s, mustache, clean shirt, dirt under his nails, eyes wide with that same confused look Claire had hours earlier. He scans the bar. Everyone looks at him, smiles politely. He approaches the counter. "Hey, I think I'm lost. My GPS cut out a few miles back. I've been driving for hours. No gas, no signal, and then this place popped up out of nowhere," he said exhaustedly. "Yeah, that's how it happens." She reaches under the bar, pulls out a towel, and begins cleaning a glass. Just like Ed. "You want something to drink?" she asks. The man nods slowly. He sits, looks around. Weird place. "You'll get used to it," she said with a slight smile. I should have warned him, told him to turn around, but I didn't. The jukebox kicks on again. A slow old blues song plays, warped by time. Time is uncertain. Could be weeks later, could be decades. The bar looks the same. Maybe a little dimmer. The same broken jukebox. the same dust in the corners. Only now, Claire moves behind the bar with ease. She wears a black apron, hair tied back. She smiles as she places a drink in front of a weeping man in a fireman's coat. Her movements are practiced, graceful, still, like the bar taught her how. There are no clocks in Balebone Bar anymore. Not really. There's no open or close, no Monday or Friday, just night. She wipes the bar in slow circles, humming softly to herself. Ed leans beside her, cleaning a glass like he always has. They don't speak much now. They don't need to. Claire braces herself on the bar and scans the room. Familiar faces, the soldier, the bride, the prom girl, the trucker, all still here, all sipping, waiting, remembering. At first, I tried to hold on to who I was, tried to escape. But this place doesn't trap you. It just shows you where you already were. New ones coming in, Ed said to Claire. Claire nods, walks to the bar as the door creaks open. A teenage boy steps in, dazed, road dust on his boots, looking like he just left something he shouldn't have survived. Welcome to Balebone Bar. Take a seat. You're safe here. For now. Is this limbo? He asked. It's something like that. She places a soda in front of him and looks toward the jukebox. A new song begins. Soft, haunting, almost a lullaby. Maybe this is where people go when the road runs out. Maybe this is what's waiting between the heartbeat and the silence. Either way, I don't miss the world out there. Not anymore. She leans against the bar beside Ed. I've got a purpose now, and some nights I even feel happy. If you ever find yourself on Route 23 and see a glowing red sign where there shouldn't be one, don't stop. Don't look. Don't ask questions. Just keep driving. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, leave a like and subscribe to Campfire Horror Stories for more chilling tales just like this one. New stories drop every week, just in time for the lights to go out. Sleep tight and don't stop at bars on old dusty roads.
The highway was empty at this hour. No headlights in either direction. No rumble of 18-wheelers echoing across the flat farmland. Not even the hum of a passing sedan. Just the hum of buzzing fluorescent lights and the steady whir of the cooler in the back of Miller's Gas and Go. A squat little gas station and convenience store that clung to the roadside like a relic from another era. Inside, Ethan Price leaned on the counter, chin resting in his hand. Eyes heavy-lidded but alert in that strange way only graveyard shift workers understood. He was 28, hair pulled back in a lazy knot, the kind of guy who never seemed tired enough to sleep but never energetic enough to look fully awake either. This job suited him. No bosses breathing down his neck, no chatter of daytime customers complaining about gas prices, and, if he was honest, no real people to bother with at all. Because the truth was, his customers didn't usually qualify as real people. The first hour of his shift always looked normal. A farmer with hay stuck to his jacket might roll in for cigarettes. A pair of teenagers from the next county might sneak in for an energy drink before driving aimlessly until curfew. Maybe a cop car slowing down out front, the officer leaning on the window for a black coffee and small talk. That was the cover, The illusion that Miller's Gas and Go was just another rural pit stop. But Ethan knew better. He'd been working here long enough to understand that once the clock pushed past midnight, things started to shift. The air outside grew still, like the night was holding its breath. The bugs stopped buzzing around the overhead lights. Even the radio static from the battered speaker behind the counter grew quieter, as if the frequency itself was pulling back to make room for something else. That was when his real customers came out. Ethan glanced at the convex mirror above the soda machine, watching the store's single aisle stretch into the reflection. The shelves were lined with chips, candy, and jerky, ordinary enough. But more than once he'd caught a glimpse of something moving differently in that mirror than it did in reality. He had stopped asking questions long ago. His hand drifted to the small notebook tucked beneath the register. It wasn't a ledger or a journal, just scribbled reminders. Notes like, "Mr. Doyle prefers warm coffee. Don't ask why his hands are cold. Family with the kid comes in for milk. Never stare at the kid's eyes. Never run out of beef jerky on Wednesdays." They weren't rules written anywhere official, but Ethan treated them like commandments. They kept the peace. They kept him alive. Tonight, though, the road outside was too quiet, even for Miller's. He straightened, stretching his back as he checked the clock. 11:58 p.m. Any moment now, the bell above the glass door would jingle, and the night would officially begin. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, the door creaked open, letting in a draft of cold night air. Ethan glanced up, forcing a casual smile. The first customer of the night was tall, unnaturally tall. His shoulders brushed the top of the doorframe as he stepped inside, ducking slightly to clear it. He wore a long coat that hung awkwardly, like it didn't quite know how to fit around his frame. His head was shaved and he wore round, tinted glasses, even though it was the dead of night. Ethan knew him. He was a regular. "Evening, Mr. Slate," Ethan said, his voice steady, friendly. "Jerky's on sale tonight. 2 for 1. The man's head tilted a fraction. Too slow. Too deliberate. His mouth twitched into a smile that didn't look natural on his long face. When he spoke, his voice hissed faintly, like air escaping a tire. "Generous. You always remember." Ethan rang him up, sliding the plastic-wrapped jerky across the counter. He didn't flinch when Mr. Slate's hand brushed his. The skin was cool, the bones beneath long and oddly jointed. Ethan just gave the same polite nod he gave everyone else, watching as the man drifted down the aisle, his reflection in the cooler glass lagging a half-second behind. Once he left, the store fell silent again, save for the buzz of the lights overhead. Ethan exhaled slowly. First one down. The night was officially underway. He leaned on the counter again, eyes flicking to the notebook. Slate had been harmless, as long as you treated him with respect. But Ethan knew there would be others tonight. There always were. The question was, who? Out on the empty road, somewhere in the dark, headlights flickered. The sound of tires whispered against the asphalt. Ethan straightened again, feeling that familiar tightening in his gut. Another customer was coming. And like always, he'd be ready. The register drawer slid shut with a soft metallic clink. Mr. Slate had left the store without incident, vanishing into the quiet night. The sound of his boots on the pavement faded, replaced once again by the low, constant hum of the fluorescent lights. Ethan checked the clock. 12:47 a.m. The lull between customers, always the eeriest part of the night. He leaned back on his stool, fingers tapping idly on the counter, listening to the cooler compressor kick on in the back. That was when the door creaked open again. The bell jingled, but the sound came out muffled, as though someone had pressed their hands over his ears. Ethan straightened, already forcing his expression into its neutral, easy smile. He didn't need to look to know who it was. He'd memorized their patterns by now. A woman stepped inside, her hair pinned neatly back, a light blue cardigan buttoned all the way to her neck. Beside her walked a boy of about 8 years old, clutching her hand. Their appearance was tidy, almost wholesome, like something out of an old photograph. Except the boy's eyes were wrong. They were too large, perfectly round, and when he blinked, the lids closed sideways. "Evening, Mrs. Carroll," Ethan said, keeping his voice soft. "Milk's fresh in the back. We got your brand in today." The woman gave a polite smile, lips tight, eyes scanning the store with the precision of someone cataloging every shadow. "That's good of you, Ethan. You always make sure." Her voice was musical, but something about it set his nerves humming. The boy tilted his head up at him. "Do you sleep?" he asked suddenly, voice deeper than it should have been, resonant in the small space. Ethan forced a chuckle, sliding a pack of gum across the counter to distract him. "Not much," he said. "That's what coffee's for." The boy stared at him a moment too long, the gum untouched. Then abruptly he smiled, wide, toothy, unsettling. Ethan relaxed slightly as Mrs. Carroll led him toward the coolers. While they browsed, Ethan grabbed his notebook, flipping to the page marked with a crooked little star. His finger traced the entry. Carroll woman plus child. "They want milk. Always milk. Don't look too long at the kid. Keep it casual. Smile. Never ask what's in the bottles." His eyes flicked up as they returned to the counter. Mrs. Carroll set down 3 gallons of whole milk, the plastic jugs slick with condensation. The boy's fingers drummed on the counter, too fast, too rhythmic, like the tapping of insect legs. Ethan rang them up, bagged the milk, and handed it over without comment. "Have a good night," he said. The boy leaned closer, whispering, "It's not night where we come from." His breath was cool on Ethan's skin. Then, just as quickly, they were gone, slipping out the door and into the empty road beyond. Ethan exhaled, pinching the bridge of his nose. Another one down. The clock read 1:18 a.m. That meant Doyle would be next. Right on time, the door opened again. The bell gave a brittle jingle as a man in a weathered trench coat stepped inside. He smelled faintly of damp soil, the odor wafting across the store before he even reached the counter. His skin was pale, drawn tight against his bones, and his eyes were bloodshot as though he hadn't slept in years. "Evening, Doyle," Ethan said warmly. "Got your tickets ready?" Doyle's lips stretched into something resembling a smile. His hands trembled as he reached for the lottery slips Ethan slid across the counter. His fingers were ice cold when they brushed Ethan's, and his nails were tinged gray. "You're a good boy," Doyle rasped. "Always remember me." Ethan grabbed a candy bar from the display, sliding it across the counter. "On the house." The man's hands stilled, his eyes softened, almost grateful, before he pocketed the bar and shuffled out. The stench of damp earth lingered behind him. Ethan wiped down the counter with a rag, his chest tight. He'd never admit it out loud, but Doyle unnerved him more than the others. Something about the man's hunger, it felt less controlled, closer to the edge. The night ticked on. Outside, the moon hung low, silver light spilling across the cracked asphalt. The road stretched empty in both directions, yet Ethan knew more would come. There were always more. And sure enough, just after 2 a.m., The rumble of an engine broke the silence. A motorcycle pulled up outside, chrome catching the moonlight. Ethan felt his gut tighten. This one wasn't part of the usual rotation. The rider dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Tall, broad-shouldered, his leather jacket creaked as he moved. When he pulled off his helmet, Ethan saw amber eyes glint in the harsh fluorescent light, too bright, too sharp. He stepped inside and the air shifted. The regulars unsettled Ethan, sure, but they played by unspoken rules. This one didn't. "Nice place," the biker said, his grin flashing teeth just a little too pointed. "Quiet." Ethan steadied himself, forcing the same casual friendliness he gave everyone else. "We like it that way. Coffee's fresh if you're looking to warm up." The biker chuckled, low and dangerous, circling the small store like a predator sizing up its territory. His gaze lingered on Ethan, on the mirrors, on the backroom door. Ethan's pulse quickened, but his hands stayed steady. He rang the man up for a pack of smokes, slid them across the counter, and even offered a fuel rewards card with a practiced smile. The biker leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "You're not scared of me?" Ethan met his gaze without flinching. "Not my job to be scared. My job's to ring folks up." For a long moment the biker stared at him, then laughed, a sound that rattled the windows. He pocketed the smokes, turned on his heel and left, boots thudding against the pavement. The motorcycle roared to life and disappeared into the night. Ethan let out a slow breath, heart pounding. The balance was holding. For now. But something told him this was only the beginning. The store was quiet again. Too quiet. Ethan leaned back on his stool, fingers drumming against the counter, watching the red digits on the wall clock tick closer to 2:30 a.m. He could still smell the faint exhaust from the biker's motorcycle lingering in the air, mixing with the ever-present scent of cheap coffee and motor oil. That one had been different. Not like Slate, who bought his jerky and left, or Mrs. Carroll, who only wanted her milk. Not even like Doyle, who radiated hunger but still followed the rules. No, the biker was something else entirely. Untethered, restless. He had laughed too loud, smiled too wide, lingered too long, and Ethan knew what that meant. The night had rules. He didn't know who wrote them or why the creatures abided by them, but the longer he worked here, the clearer they became. Some he had figured out on his own, through trial, error, and instinct. Others were passed down in whispers from the old cashier who'd trained him, a man who lasted 3 weeks before walking out mid-shift and never returning. Rule 1. Never deny them service. Rule 2. Never ask what they are. Rule 3. Always act like they belong here. Rule 4. Never, ever let a human get caught in the mix. That last rule had been tested once, about a year ago. A drunk had stumbled in, slurring, knocking over a chip rack. Ethan had done everything he could to push the man out the door before the others noticed, but it hadn't been fast enough. He never forgot the way the Carroll boys' two wide eyes followed the drunk out into the night, like a cat watching a bird that would never make it home. Ethan sighed and poured himself another cup of coffee. The night wasn't done yet. It never was. The bell over the door jingled soft and clear. Ethan froze, mug halfway to his lips. A young woman entered, her hair wet as though she'd been standing in rain that didn't exist. Water dripped onto the floor with each step, pooling at her feet. She moved slowly, her expression distant, eyes glassy and unfocused. Ethan had never seen her before. "Evening," he said gently, setting down the mug. "Need something warm?" Coffee lips parted, but the sound that came out wasn't words. It was a hollow echo like water rushing down a drain. She wandered down the aisle, leaving wet footprints on the linoleum. Ethan's skin prickled. She wasn't one of the regulars, and newcomers were always dangerous. He glanced at his notebook, flipping to a blank page. With a pen, he scrawled, "Wet woman, not seen before. Watch carefully." She stopped at the cooler, staring through the glass as though she didn't understand what was inside. Then she pressed her palm against it. Water trickled down the door where she touched, fogging the glass. Ethan stood slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. "What can I get you?" he asked, tone calm, practiced. Her head snapped toward him with unnatural speed. Water dripped from her hair, splattering the floor. Her voice came again, the gurgle of someone speaking from beneath a river's surface. Ethan held his ground, forcing himself to smile. "Everything's yours here. Just pick what you like." After a long pause, she turned back to the cooler, opened the door and pulled out a bottle of water. The irony wasn't lost on him. She walked to the counter, set it down and stared at him expectantly. Her pupils were wide, swallowing nearly all the color of her irises. He rang her up, slid the bottle back to her. "On the house." For a moment, she didn't move. Then slowly she reached out, fingers damp and icy brushing his as she took the bottle. She turned without a word and walked back into the night. The door shut behind her, the bell giving its soft jingle. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He picked up his notebook and wrote another line beneath his entry. She took water, accepted kindness, left without trouble. He stared at the words, tapping the pen against the page. There was no end to them, no end to the parade of things that came through those doors. They followed the rules, mostly, but every so often someone new would test the boundaries. And Ethan knew what happened when the boundaries broke. The door jingled again. This time it was Slate, returning far sooner than expected. He ducked through the doorway, tinted glasses hiding his eyes. He didn't browse. He didn't head to the jerky aisle. Instead, he came straight to the counter, his mouth pulling into that unnatural smile. "She doesn't belong here," Slate hissed, voice carrying like air leaking from a tire. "You know it." "We know it. Keep the peace, clerk. Keep the balance." Ethan swallowed. He nodded once, steady. "I always do." Slate leaned closer, the hiss of his breath rattling in Ethan's ears. "If you fail, they'll eat you first." Then, without another word, he turned and vanished into the night. Ethan stood alone in the glow of the buzzing fluorescence, staring at the door. His heart hammered in his chest. The rules were fragile, and tonight, they were being tested. The night was holding together by threads. Ethan could feel it. The wet woman had tested things. Slate's warning still hissed in his ears, and the biker's laugh seemed to linger in the rafters. The gas station's buzzing fluorescence flickered once, twice, then steadied again, as though the building itself was bracing for something worse. It came at 3:04 a.m. The bell above the door jangled loud and sloppy as a man stumbled inside, dragging the sour reek of alcohol with him. His boots scraped against the tile, unsteady, each step punctuated by a muttered curse. He wore a stained hunting jacket, camouflage cap tilted sideways, and his face was flushed crimson from drink. Ethan's stomach sank. Not now. Please, not tonight. The man slammed his hands down on the counter, leaning in too close, breath stinking of whiskey. "You got cigarettes?" Damn machine outside ate my money. Ethan kept his voice calm, casual. "Sure thing, man. What kind you want?" The drunk squinted, swaying. "Marlboros, Reds. Don't give me no lights." Ethan grabbed a pack from the shelf behind him, slid it onto the counter. "That'll be..." Before he could finish, the man barked out a laugh, reaching clumsily into his pocket for crumpled bills. His elbow knocked over a display of lighters, sending them clattering across the floor. The sound echoed too loud in the small store. Ethan froze. He wasn't worried about the mess. He was worried about who else might have heard. Because the bell over the door jingled again. Mr. Doyle stepped back inside. His hollow eyes found the drunk immediately. The man didn't notice. He was too busy fumbling for change, but Ethan did. He saw Doyle's nostrils flare, smelled the faint sour tang of soil and rot filling the air. "Hey," Ethan said quickly, forcing a smile at Doyle. "Back so soon?" "Coffee's still hot." But Doyle wasn't looking at Ethan. He was staring at the drunk's exposed wrist, veins pulsing beneath flushed skin. His hands trembled. Hunger radiated off him in waves. The drunk finally noticed the stranger. "What the hell you looking at?" he slurred, jabbing a finger toward Doyle. "Back off, old man." Ethan's heart spiked. He rounded the counter, moving fast, intercepting before Doyle could move closer. "All right, guys, let's keep it cool, okay? Doyle, why don't you grab a coffee on me? And, sir, your smokes are ready, no worries." But the drunk wasn't listening. He reached out suddenly, grabbing Doyle's wrist to shove him back. The moment he touched him, his face changed. His drunken haze shattered into raw, primal horror. His eyes widened as if he'd just plunged his hand into an open grave. Doyle's skin was ice cold, his veins stiff and empty like old roots. The drunk staggered backward, screaming, "Jesus Christ, what the hell are you?" The words hung in the air like a gunshot. The store went silent. Too silent. From the cooler's reflection, Ethan caught movement. Something shifted in the glass. Shapes lingering in the aisles were watching, listening. The Carroll boy's face flashed in his mind, that too-wide smile when prey revealed itself. Rule 4. Never let a human get caught in the mix. "Hey," Ethan barked, louder than he meant to, forcing his voice to steady. "That's enough." "Doyle, let's get you some coffee. Sir, your cigs are here. Let me bag 'em up." The drunk was pale, sweating, stumbling toward the door. "What kind of freaking place is this?" he muttered half to himself. "What the hell's wrong with all of you?" He staggered outside, the bell clanging violently as the door shut behind him. Ethan turned immediately back to Doyle, who stood frozen, eyes still locked on the door. His hands twitched, fingers flexing like claws that longed to close around flesh. Ethan didn't hesitate. He slid another candy bar across the counter, his hand steady. "On the house," he said firmly. Doyle's gaze dropped. He stared at the candy, then slowly picked it up with trembling fingers. The hunger in his eyes dimmed, just slightly. His lips parted as though he wanted to say something, but no words came. He turned and left, the bell giving a brittle jingle behind him. Ethan sank back onto his stool, sweat beading his forehead. The drunk was out there, stumbling down the road, cursing into the night. But Ethan knew it wasn't over. The creatures had rules, but so did hunger. And the drunk had pulled the veil back just enough to make everything dangerous. The night wasn't going to let that go. The store was quiet again, but it wasn't the kind of quiet Ethan trusted. It was the tight, brittle silence of a storm that hadn't broken yet. He sat behind the counter, staring at the door, heart still racing from the drunk's outburst. The rules almost broke. He kept repeating it in his head like a mantra. Doyle could have snapped. The Carroll boy could have drifted in and smelled fresh blood. Slate might have decided Ethan wasn't fit to keep the balance. And all of them would have turned on the clerk who let the peace slip. Instead, the drunk had staggered out into the night, half coherent, blind to the fact that he'd just danced with death. Ethan should have been relieved, but he wasn't, because deep down he knew it wasn't over. At 3:27 a.m., the sound came. Not the jingle of the bell, not the hum of the fluorescents. A low rumble, like a predator clearing its throat. Ethan felt it in his bones before he heard the familiar growl of an engine outside. The biker. The door opened and he stepped back in, grinning wide, teeth too sharp, eyes glowing faintly red in the fluorescent light. His boots hit the tile with deliberate weight. He looked around slowly, then leaned an elbow on the counter, grinning at Ethan like they were old friends. "You let one get away," he said, voice rough, mocking. "Out there, stumbling drunk, meat ripe for the taking. Ain't you supposed to keep things tidy, clerk?" Ethan swallowed, kept his voice even. "Everyone gets through the night. That's the deal." The biker's grin widened, showing every needle-like tooth. "Not tonight. Tonight, I'm hungry." Ethan's hands curled under the counter, steady but tight. "Not here. You know the rules." The biker chuckled, a low rumbling sound that made the glass door shiver in its frame. "Rules are for the weak. Out there, beyond your buzzing lights, that's my world." Ethan's stomach dropped, because through the glass door he saw him, the drunk stumbling across the parking lot, still cursing at shadows only he could see. Easy prey. The biker turned his head slowly, gaze fixed on the man outside. "See? He's already delivered to me." Ethan moved fast. "No!" His voice cut sharp, firm, almost commanding. He grabbed a pack of smokes from the counter, any distraction, anything, and shoved them into the biker's chest. "On the house." "That's your purchase. That's the exchange. You've been served. That means you're done." For a moment, silence stretched. The biker's glowing eyes bored into him. Ethan didn't blink. Then the biker laughed, loud, booming, shaking the shelves. He stuffed the cigarettes into his jacket, grin razor sharp. "You got balls, clerk. I'll give you that, but you can't protect them forever. One day the meat'll walk in here on its own, and you won't be able to shove candy bars at it to keep the wolves at bay." He tapped the counter once, heavy and final, then turned and stalked out. The roar of his motorcycle split the night, fading into the distance. Ethan sagged against the counter, sweat running cold down his spine. His whole body trembled with the release of tension. He looked at the door again, half expecting Doyle or Slate or the Carroll boy to return, but the lot was empty. The drunk was gone, vanished into the night. Maybe he'd stumbled far enough down the road that nothing else would find him. Or maybe he hadn't. Ethan would never know. But inside the store, the balance was restored. The fragile truce held. For now. The clock ticked toward dawn. The fluorescents hummed on. Ethan picked up his notebook and wrote the last line of the night. The biker doesn't follow the rules. He'll be back. As the first sliver of daylight crept through the glass, Ethan leaned back on his stool, eyes heavy but steady. Another night survived. Another fragile peace kept. He knew he couldn't keep it forever. But until someone else took the shift, Miller's Gas and Go would stay what it had always been. A neutral ground. A place where monsters shopped. Humans didn't belong. And one clerk stood guard between two worlds. And so, the graveyard shift ends. For one more night, Ethan has held the line, keeping the fragile peace between the living and the things that come crawling out when the world sleeps. But how long can one man keep the rules intact before the balance tips? and the monsters claim the store for themselves. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more terrifying tales from the dark edges of the world, don't forget to subscribe to Campfire Horror Stories. Hit that like button, share this video with friends, and drop a comment below. Tell us what you think lurks in the shadows of Miller's Gas and Go. And remember, the next time you find yourself at a lonely gas station on the side of the highway after midnight, don't look too closely at the other customers, because some of them aren't human. It's never the living that tip well after midnight. That's what Earl told himself while the griddle hissed and the neon sign outside flickered between Nancy's and Nassie. The highway beyond the window was empty, just a slick black vein running through nowhere. Inside, bacon popped, coffee burned, and the jukebox hummed a song that didn't remember its words. Earl had worked this overnight shift for 15 years. Same cracked linoleum, same coffee maker older than God. Across the counter, Nancy rolled silverware with the rhythm of habit. She'd been here just as long, smoke always curling from the corner of her mouth. "You got your rain," she said. "Smelled it." He flipped 2 eggs, dropped bacon. The sound was comfort-proof the world was still turning. The door jingled. A kid drifted in, backpack forward like a shield. Nancy poured him coffee before he asked. "You're open all night?" he said. "Forever," she said, and went back to her rolling. Earl was halfway through buttering toast when a trucker took the corner booth. Nancy called him Red, she called them all Red, and set down his usual. Earl's hands worked without thought, and for a while the diner breathed its familiar tune. Grease, coffee, rain tapping the glass. Then the bell above the door stayed silent, though the door opened anyway. Earl didn't look up. The air changed temperature first, a soft drop that touched the base of his neck. Nancy's voice didn't shake when she said, "Evening." "Evening," came the reply, a sound more felt than heard. "I'd like the special." Without a glance, Nancy reached under the counter, brought out the black ledger bound in worn leather, and set it down like a ritual. The page she opened had no number, just a dark fingerprint that didn't belong. "What'll it be?" she asked. "Red Sunrise." Earl turned off the jukebox and went to the cooler in the back, the one with a lock that only opened for him. The cold inside smelled like rust and something older. He poured from a metal pitcher into a frosted glass, a liquid dark as wine and twice as thick. When he came back, he set it under a napkin and stepped away. The hand that lifted it was long, pale, and careful. A silver coin clinked onto the counter, but it didn't sound like metal. It sounded like distance. The man smiled without teeth, drank, and left without another word. When the door shut, the neon flickered back to life. Nancy slipped the coin into the drawer where the ledger slept. "He's early tonight." "Yeah," Earl said, scraping the grill. "Storm must have stirred the thirst." By 1 a.m., a rhythm returned. The drifter asked for pancakes. "Make 'em like home," he said, and Earl stacked them soft and high. A pair of pale regulars came next, asking for raw liver, just kissed by heat. Nancy jotted the order, her pencil barely scratching paper. Earl seared the meat 3 seconds per side, sprinkled salt counterclockwise, and slid the plate out. The couple smiled, too wide, too still. "You seen the moon tonight?" the drifter asked. "No," Nancy said, "but she saw you." He laughed. He thought she was joking. The trucker still hadn't touched his pie. He just stared at it like it might blink. At the far booth, the pale couple whispered to each other in a language that moved like wind through bone. Earl didn't listen. Some conversations weren't for him. Outside, the mist pressed against the windows, thick and low. The highway was a throat breathing cold. Nancy leaned on the counter. "Ever think about quitting?" "Every damn night," Earl said, flipping an omelet. "And every dawn, I don't." A knock came from the back door, 3 soft taps, slow, deliberate. Earl froze. Nancy didn't move. He walked back, cracked the door an inch. The night waited there, black and patient. "Kitchen's closed," he said. The cold pushed through the gap, then withdrew, leaving frost along the hinges. Earl slid the bolt, exhaled, and didn't ask what had wanted in. By 2, the diner filled again with sound. The fryer sang, the clock ticked, the jukebox found an old country tune. The drifter was laughing with Nancy now, syrup on his chin. The pale couple vanished between one blink and the next, leaving only their plates, clean, spotless, and empty. The trucker finally lifted his fork. "Quiet tonight," he said. "Mostly," Nancy replied. Earl poured him another coffee. "The kind of quiet that means something's watching its manners." The bell jingled again, ordinary this time. A farmer came in, smelling of hay and diesel. He nodded to everyone, sat at the counter, and said, "Morning," though it wasn't. "Morning," Nancy said, because it always was here. Earl poured his mug full, topped the drifters, checked the griddle. The night eased into a steady heartbeat. Steam curled from the coffee. The storm outside turned to a slow drizzle that would dry before dawn. The diner breathed. The road breathed back. And Earl, watching the open sign sway on its chain, felt the strange, familiar peace of men who know the monsters by name. The hour between 2 and 4 is the loneliest kind of quiet. Even the wind forgets what it's supposed to do. Earl stood over the griddle, scraping clean lines through old grease, letting the rhythm of it steady him. The diner at this hour always felt like a waiting room for ghosts, too bright for night, too tired for morning. Steam rose from the coffee pots in lazy ribbons, and the hum of the cooler in back was the only sound that seemed alive. Nancy leaned on the counter, flipping through the order pad, her cigarette burning to paper and air. "Feels like a busy one," she said. Earl nodded. "Storm nights always are." Outside, the rain had thinned to mist, the kind that stayed low to the ground and made headlights glow like candles. Somewhere far off, a coyote barked, short and angry. Or maybe it wasn't a coyote at all. The bell gave a small jingle. A man in a soaked coat stepped in, broad shoulders, eyes rimmed red from the cold. He took a stool, peeled off his gloves, and set them neatly beside him. "Coffee?" Nancy asked. "Please." He smiled with too many teeth showing. "And the usual." That was all she needed. She reached for the ledger, flipped to the back, and pressed her finger on a line that wasn't written in ink but in something darker, dried long ago. Earl didn't have to ask. He already knew the order. He went to the cooler, fetched a heavy ceramic bowl sealed in wax paper, and unwrapped it slow. Inside was marrow, thick and pale, the way some customers liked it. He warmed it in a pan, drizzled it with something red that steamed like cinnamon and metal. The man drank his coffee, hands steady, not blinking much. "You keep the lights on out here," he said. "That's good. Keeps the road honest." Earl set the bowl in front of him. "Someone's got to feed the travelers." The man nodded. He ate with small, careful motions. When he finished, he reached into his coat, pulled out something that looked like a silver button, and left it on the counter. It didn't make a sound when it landed. Then he stood, gave Nancy a smile that didn't belong to any human mouth, and walked out into the fog. Nancy exhaled smoke through her nose. "That one's new," she said. "Not new," Earl muttered, watching the door close. "Just passing through again." The next customers came in as if summoned by the departing one. 3 men, tall and lean, wearing oil-field jackets streaked with dirt that smelled more like clay than mud. Their boots left dark prints that didn't fade. They laughed too loud, slapped each other's backs, and took the booth by the window. "Boys from the rigs," Nancy said, pen ready. Earl caught her tone. Not fear, just wariness. The rigs out this way hadn't been active for years, but the men were regulars in their way. "What'll it be tonight?" she asked. One of them grinned. "You know what we like." "The bones." She scribbled something that looked like shorthand but wasn't. Earl pulled out the bin labeled B-Stock, a joke between him and Nancy that stopped being funny years ago. He laid the cleaned bones on a tray, brushed them with oil, roasted until they shone like ivory. The men cracked them open, sucking the inside slow, eyes half-lidded. One hummed low under his breath, a sound like wind through fence wire. The drifter kid was still there, now on his 3rd cup of coffee. He glanced their way, tried not to stare. "They always eat like that?" he asked. "Some folks never learned table manners," Nancy said. He chuckled, then stopped when one of the men met his gaze, eyes black as asphalt. The drifter looked back to his plate real quick. Earl caught it all but said nothing. His rule was simple: serve, don't see. A few minutes later, another regular came in, a small, bent woman wrapped in layers of wool that didn't match, her hair white as sugar. She carried a small jar in her hands, cradled like it held light. "Evening, Miss Alma," Nancy greeted. "Evening, dear," the woman said. Her voice had that hum that made every vowel last a heartbeat too long. "You still keep the shelf for me?" Nancy pointed to the end of the counter. Alma shuffled over, unscrewed the jar, and poured something thick and gray into a mug. "Special blend," she said, winking at the drifter. "For the aches." Earl smiled. "You're still kicking." "Can't bury me twice," she said, and everyone laughed. Even the Bones men, though their laughter sounded like the creak of ice. Time melted again. It always did here. The diner filled and emptied like lungs, the faces shifting between one blink and the next. Some smiled, some didn't. Some left tips that glittered, others left none at all. The ledger thickened with names that didn't look like words. At one point, Nancy leaned on the counter and said, "You ever wonder if we're still on the map?" Earl chuckled. "Don't think maps want us anymore." They shared a quiet smile, the kind that only long-time night people share, the kind that says, "We're the last light left on this road." By 3:30, the regulars had settled in their usual corners. Alma slept in her booth, chin on her jar. The rig workers had gone silent, eyes closed as if listening to something only they could hear. The drifter finally stood to leave, thanked Nancy for the coffee, and pressed a few bills to the counter. "You folks run a strange place," he said. Nancy grinned. "Strange keeps the rent paid." He left into the mist. The diner felt heavier for a moment, as if something had exhaled when he walked out. Earl leaned on the counter beside her. "He'll tell people what he saw. They won't believe him. Doesn't matter. The road's good at hiding its own secrets." They worked in silence a while longer. The coffee urn gurgled its last pot, and the neon light outside flickered a heartbeat rhythm. The clock above the pass said 3:47. Almost time for the ones who came right before dawn. The ones who looked most like people until you watched too long. Nancy freshened the salt shakers. "Feels like a storm without the rain." Earl nodded. "It's in the air." The bell jingled again. A man in a dusty suit stepped in, hat shadowing his face. He moved like a photograph come to life. "Is it still good?" he asked. Earl frowned. "What's that?" "The promise," he said. "Still holds?" Nancy hesitated only a second before saying, "So long as the lights are on." He tipped his hat, slid into the nearest booth, and didn't order anything at all. Just sat there facing the window, whispering to his reflection. The glass fogged over, and words appeared for half a second before vanishing. "Keep it open." The clock hit 4 a.m. The quiet stretched. Outside, the mist thickened, swallowing the road. The last of the specials had eaten their fill. Inside, everything hummed like a lullaby played on old wiring. Earl cleaned the griddle, wiped down the counter, and poured himself a cup that had gone bitter an hour ago. Nancy yawned. "Almost morning." He nodded. "Yeah, another night done." She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were on the window, and at their own reflections, the fog behind them, and the faint suggestion of shapes that didn't belong to either. "Not done," she whispered. "Never done. Not here." Outside, the sign buzzed, "Open 24 hours. One like dying, one refusing." The night held its breath, waiting for the next customer. By 4, the diner felt less like a place on a map and more like a room that the night had built around them. The fog pressed its face to the glass and peered in like a curious animal. The sign outside hummed itself brave. Inside, things softened. Voices, footsteps, the hard edge of hunger. Earl thumped the jukebox on the side, and it coughed up a tune from before he had gray in his beard. "There," he said, as if he'd fixed weather. Nancy smirked, topped off 2 coffees that had gone sullen at the bottom. The rig boys had drifted to silence, jackets slung over the booth back, boots kicked sideways, heads tilted like they were listening through the floor. Alma snored into her scarf, her white hair a halo in the booth light. Somewhere in the corner, the man in the dusty suit had fogged the window with the side of his face and written nothing there. Community, Earl thought, and it surprised him a little. Like realizing the stray cat you fed once had come back with kittens and a sense of entitlement. A long shadow folded itself through the door. It resolved into a man with a sunburned neck and a forearm tattoo of cornrows. He sat at the counter and took off his cap like this was church you could smell. "Eggs," he said. "Over. Toast if you got it." Human, all the way through. You could tell by the way he looked at the pie like it was a thing from childhood that might forgive him. "You're early, Cal," Nancy said. "Storm woke me. Figured coffee would forgive it." He gave Earl a nod that men shared when they'd both been young once. Earl slid eggs onto the plate, let the yolks go soft like secrets, and put the toast on the angle that made it look like more than it was. "You want the special salt?" he asked without thinking. Cal blinked. "Just normal's fine." He smiled, the way people smile when they decide not to notice their own questions. At booth 3, a different trio than the rig men tonight, thin as fence wire and gray around the edges. The talk turns to distances. "Migration season," one said, tapping the window with a nail that didn't quite look like a nail. "Roads are narrow this year." "Snow held late," another murmured. "Lots of sign near the river. We'll go old way." Cross the low places, Earl made a note in his head without writing it down. It was a habit he'd picked up since the ledger. Keep maps where eyes can't borrow them. Nancy slid Alma a plate of toast when she stirred and blinked herself awake. "You're an angel," Alma muttered, dunked the toast in her jar, and made a happy sound entirely inappropriate for public consumption. She patted Nancy's hand, then looked at the rig boys with a flinty sweetness. You mind your manners. Neutral ground's neutral, even when you dream. One of the rig men, jaw like a split knuckle, tipped 2 fingers. We know the rule. There were only 3 rules written on the first page of the black ledger, in a hand that belonged to someone no one had ever met. No hunting within 50. No feeding inside. Pay what you can. Leave what you shouldn't. Everything else was tradition, and tradition was the best kind of law. Heavy, invisible, and not worth testing. A shape slipped in wearing a hoodie and borrowed hands. Teenager small, starved big. He took the stool nearest the pie display and pressed his palms to the glass like he could warm himself on the reflection of sugar. Nancy set a glass of water in front of him. Then, after a beat, a grilled cheese she didn't write down. He stared at it. I didn't. How special, she said. First-timers get one on the house if they agree to learn the rules. He looked sideways, quick as rabbits. What rules? Don't spook the new folk, Earl said mildly from the griddle. The boy ate like every bite might run. Halfway through, he winced and touched his side. Nancy went around the counter, rolled up his sweatshirt hem, and found 3 parallel scratches, livid and weeping. Dogs? She asked. Fence, he lied. Alma clucked, rummaged in her bag, and produced a tin of something that smelled like pine and winter. Hold still. She dabbed it on, and the boy exhaled as if someone had opened a window in his chest. Hurts less now, he said, wonder creeping in. Pain's a polite guest, Alma said. Treat it firm, and it'll mind itself. At 4:22, a regular who wasn't a person even a little drifted in like wood smoke and sat at booth 1, where the light was kind and the shadows went obedient. They never ordered food. They ordered heat, a mug of hot water, no cup. Earl set the steel down and watched steam gather on nothing. He'd stopped trying to see the outline years ago. When you respect a guest, you don't ask them to prove they're there. Cal shoveled eggs, then paused, fork hovering, eyes on the reflection of booth 3 in the stainless behind the counter. He frowned, looked back at his plate, shook his head. People who worked outside were best at not believing what they saw. You couldn't finish a season otherwise. By 4:36, it felt almost festive in the small, sideways way night people celebrate. Nancy cut slices of lemon chess pie that glowed like a good idea and set them down in front of whoever looked like they needed permission to be sweet. Earl worked the grill like it owed him money, and the grill paid in sizzle. Alma told a joke about a preacher, a well, and a rope that had been blessed too many times. The rig boys laughed like gun racks. Even the suit by the window smiled faintly at nothing at all. A man with a deer's patience and a scar that respected his jaw came in holding his hat in both hands. He had the look of someone who knew exactly what he was and didn't apologize about it. We're passing, he said, voice mild, eyes not. 3 of us. We won't trouble the town. Nancy slid the ledger toward him. He signed with a mark that changed if you looked at it too long and left a pendant shaped like a leaf gone to steel. For the door, he said. Earl hung it by the back, where the wind sometimes tried to learn the latch. The air changed, just a hair, like a draft talking itself out of mischief. Near the restrooms, a low snarl rolled and got clipped short. Booth 3 had stiffened. The rig boys' boots had found the exact angles that made standing up fast look slow. A woman in a raincoat had risen without rising, her smile widening in the wrong direction. Nancy reached down and rang the little brass bell under the register. Not hard, not dramatic. Once. The sound went through the diner like a hand smoothing hair. It wasn't loud, but it was specific. Booth 3 tipped their chins. The raincoat woman folded herself back into a straighter shape. The snarl died of embarrassment. Nobody met anybody's eyes for a breath. Then everyone went back to their slices and their silences. Neutral ground holds, Earl thought. He hadn't believed in much these last years beyond heat and salt and the way water finds the low places. But he believed in that bell. At 4:50, Earl brought out a pot of chili that had been making itself in the slow cooker since sunset. He ladled small bowls and sent them like messages to anyone with cold in their bones, which meant most of them. Alma took hers with crushed crackers and declared it stubborn in a good way. Cal said nothing, but he ate the second bowl with the care of a man reading names in stone. 15 years, Nancy said, leaning on the pass. She didn't say what she meant. She didn't have to. 15, Earl said, and wiped the same clean spot twice. You ever miss day shift? Day never needed me, he said. Her smile tilted. Night does? Night minds its manners when it's fed. On the counter, the coin from earlier, silver by sight, distance by sound, shifted minutely in its drawer, as if remembering it had traveled a long way to sit still. The ledger breathed once in the dark. You could feel it if your hand was on the wood. They were a family if you squinted. The woman who kept the bell, the man who made heat into mercy, the old one who knew ointments and old words, the boys who listened for things you couldn't hear, the suit whose promise fogged glass, the hungry who'd learned not to bite, the human who didn't run from what he didn't believe. Refill? Nancy asked Cal. He looked at his cup, blinked, and nodded. Don't know where the first one went. Happens, she said, and poured. Dawn began to thin the fog from behind, the glass going from black to something with gradients. You could almost see the gravel of the lot, the long, tired road. In the booths, shoulders lowered, voices softened. The light above the griddle wore a gentler kind of hum. The bell over the door considered its options and gave a shy jingle. No wind this time, no fog gust squeezing through the seal. Just the door, opening the honest way, and a figure stepping into the square of brightness like it was a dare. Everything in the room noticed at once. The rig boys stopped pretending to be asleep. Alma's hand paused over her spoon. The suit's breath fogged the glass into a single hard circle. The not-quite teenager's shoulders drew in as if the temperature had dropped by a long degree. Cal's fork hovered. Yolk ran toward the plate lip and stopped, as if it had reached an edge that wasn't ceramic. The figure didn't wear a coat, though wet clung to him as if he'd brought his own weather. He moved like he had nowhere to be and all the time in the world to not get there. His eyes weren't wrong, exactly. They were just untranslated. Morning, Nancy said, the word steady as a level countertop. The stranger smiled the way knives do when they remember they have two edges. Is it? He asked, and the bell over the door gave a single nervous tick as if it had remembered another appointment. Earl wiped his hands on the towel and set it down. Tradition pulled its coat on and cleared its throat. The family he fed looked toward him, and then beyond him, and then somewhere else entirely, the way you look when you're making sure everything you love is where you left it. Menu's there, Nancy said, tapping the laminate, the ordinary one, the one with omelets and soups and a pie list that didn't mention what pie did when no one was watching. The stranger looked past it, past the counter, past himself, and smiled again. I'll have the special, he said, and the diner, every cup, every knife, every breath went very, very still. The diner had rules, and rules were the only reason anyone was still alive. Every regular in the place felt the air shift when the stranger spoke. The fluorescent light above booth 3 buzzed once and died, leaving that corner in a pocket of gray. Even the fog outside leaned closer, curious. Nancy didn't blink. She had dealt with every shape the road could cough up, but this one made her chest ache, like breathing cold metal. Earl wiped his hands again and again on the towel. "We got 2 menus," he said, voice steady. "Breakfast and night. You'll want one of those." The stranger smiled. It wasn't wide, it was deep. "The special," he repeated, slow, savoring the word. "And I'll take her with it." His eyes slid toward Nancy. "If I don't get what I want, I'll eat everyone in this room." The sound that followed wasn't silence, it was recoil. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. The bell above the door gave one uncertain chime and went still. Booth 3 shifted first. The rig boys straightened, their eyes darkening until the whites bled out. Alma put down her jar, the gray inside quivering like it could sense weather. Even Cal, human as sunrise, felt his stomach turn and his knuckles go cold. "Not here," Nancy said quietly. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but it held. "This is neutral ground." The stranger's head tilted. "Neutral." He ran a fingertip along the counter, the laminate blistered beneath it. "There's no such thing. You feed monsters and call it mercy. You feed men and call it kindness. You'll feed me either way." Earl stepped out from behind the counter, cleaver in hand. Not raised, just visible. "She ain't on the menu," he said. The stranger smiled wider. "Then I'll make my own." He reached into his coat, and for a heartbeat the smell of iron and rot filled the diner. Something pulsed there, alive, wrong. A low growl rippled from booth 1. The steam above the mug twisted itself into claws. The air grew heavy enough to bend. "You will not," it said. Its voice wasn't one voice, it was a chorus from under the floor. The stranger's grin faltered. His coat fluttered once like something inside it had lost patience. "Who speaks for you?" he asked. "These keepers?" Alma's laugh rasped. "They speak for themselves." From the window booth, the dusty suit man rose. The fog outside swirled to meet him, wrapping his shoulders like a mantle. "We owe this place our peace," he said. "You break it, you break the truce." The rig boys stood, boots creaking. Their shadows spilled too long across the tiles. "We eat what we earn," one said. "This house feeds fair." Nancy's knees wanted to shake, but she found the edge of the counter and held it. Earl moved to her side, shoulder to shoulder. He didn't look at her. He never did when things got bad, but she could feel the heat off of him like a promise. The stranger looked around. Every booth, every seat held eyes now. Some burned, some glowed, some were holes punched straight through to something older than dark. Even the pie case clicked as if remembering it had teeth once. "This isn't your fight," he said. "You defend livestock." Alma snorted. "Livestock cook your supper, dear." A sound rose from the floorboards, a vibration, like a heartbeat the building had forgotten it owned. The coffee urn rattled. The pendant on the back door spun once on its nail, striking the frame with a metallic chime that echoed too long. The stranger's shape flickered, arms too many, spine too long, then settled back into human. "You think you can frighten me?" Earl met his eyes. "We don't frighten. We serve. That's what you walked into." For the first time, the stranger hesitated. His reflection in the window wavered, then changed. Dozens of faces looked back at him, all belonging to things he didn't own. The diner was small, but tonight it was full of everything the dark owed gratitude to. At the counter, Cal, the farmer, the one still pretending none of this was happening, stared at his eggs, jaw slack. He saw claws, horns, mouths where mouths shouldn't be, and none of them turned on him. They all faced the stranger. The rig boy's laughter came out low, electric. "You're outnumbered, friend." The stranger's mouth flattened. He looked at Nancy one last time, then at Earl, and for a moment the pretense fell away. His eyes were a void that had seen too many endings. "This place won't last forever," he said softly. "When it falls, I'll be waiting." He turned, pushed through the door, and stepped into the fog. The bell rang once, like relief, and the neon sign outside flickered, open, then steadied. For a long time no one moved. Then Alma let out a shaky laugh. "Always someone testing the locks." Earl exhaled. "He'll be back." "Maybe," Nancy said. She poured herself a cup with trembling hands. "But not tonight." The regulars began to settle. Booth 1's steam unfurled and vanished. The rig boys slouched back into their seats, muttering about the road. The man in the dusty suit reclaimed his silence by the window. The diner breathed again. Cal rubbed his eyes. What was that?" Earl slid him a refill. Trouble that forgot its manners. He nodded like he'd heard something reasonable. Maybe he had. Maybe that's what survival sounded like. The clock ticked toward 5. Dawn wasn't far. The grill hissed, the air cleared, and somewhere outside, something large moved back down the highway, leaving the diner alone in its bubble of yellow light. Inside, the smell of coffee returned, ordinary, human, steady. Nancy lit a cigarette, offered one to Earl. He shook his head. "Another night done?" she asked. He looked toward the door where the last of the fog was sliding away. "Almost," he said. "Let's see if morning shows up." Dawn came slow to the diner, like it wasn't sure it wanted to touch the place. The sky outside was the color of dishwater and cigarette smoke, the kind of gray that didn't promise anything. The fog still clung to the edges of the gravel lot, folding itself away inch by inch. Inside, the lights hummed, soft, pale, and weary, their glow warming the chrome surfaces that had survived the night. Nancy poured herself another cup of coffee and leaned on the counter. The tremor in her hand had finally settled. Earl was at the grill again because that's what he did when the world tilted. He cooked it back to level. The smell of frying butter, bacon, and coffee reclaimed the air. Normalcy. Or the version of it they'd earned. Booth 3 was empty now. The rig boys had left before first light, their laughter echoing faintly in the mist like a promise or a warning. Alma was gone too, though her jar sat on the counter with a note tucked underneath. "You still owe me for the salt." The dusty suit man had dissolved with the fog, leaving only the faintest outline of a handprint on the glass, like the mist had remembered to say goodbye. Only one patron remained. Cal, the farmer, sat at the counter with his hat beside his plate, staring at the last of his eggs. His face was pale, his knuckles white around the coffee mug. He hadn't spoken since the stranger left, and when he finally did, his voice was small and worn thin. "What were they?" he asked. "Those people." Earl didn't answer right away. He flipped a pancake, watched it bubble, then said, "Hungry, same as you." Cal shook his head. That ain't what I saw." Nancy met his eyes. "What you saw was good manners holding the world together." She gave him a tired smile. "And if you're smart, you'll leave it at that." Cal nodded slowly, more in self-defense than understanding. He finished his coffee, slid a few bills under the cup, and stood. The bell over the door gave a tired jingle as he left. Outside, the morning was turning gold at the edges. He walked to his truck like a man stepping out of a dream he didn't trust. From the kitchen, Earl watched him go. "You think he'll tell anyone?" "Probably," Nancy said. "No one will believe him." "Good." Earl scraped the griddle clean and set the spatula down. His reflection in the steel looked older than it should have. He sighed. "I'm too tired for that kind of night again." Nancy smirked faintly. "You say that every time something ugly shows up." He looked around, at the booths, the flickering neon, the streaked windows. The place felt alive. Not safe exactly, but steady, breathing. He wiped his hands, then reached under the counter for the ledger. The cover was warm to the touch, the leather pulsing faintly like something asleep. He flipped to a new page. Under the long list of names, some crossed out, some faded, he wrote a single line in his blunt cook's handwriting. "Balance kept." He closed it and slid it back under the drawer. Outside, the horizon was bruising from gray to pink. A truck rumbled by on the distant highway, the first sign of the world waking up again. The sound felt almost intrusive. Nancy leaned on the counter, watching the light grow. "Think he'll come back?" Earl poured himself a mug and took a slow sip. "They always come back," he said. "Hunger's a stubborn thing. But so's habit." The coffee maker sputtered its last pot. The bell above the door jingled again, soft this time. Just a traveler, human, definitely human, coming in with the first real sunlight on his coat. He squinted, smiled, and said, "You folks open?" Nancy smiled back. "Always are." She poured him a cup, her movements steady now, almost graceful in their weariness. Earl slid a plate of eggs onto the counter, fresh and ordinary. The traveler thanked them both, unaware of the scars the night had left on the walls, unaware of the faint smell of ozone that lingered in the corners. He ate, and for a while, the only sounds were forks, coffee, and the low hum of the jukebox waking up again. The light through the windows stretched long across the floor, pushing the night out inch by inch. Earl glanced toward the ledger drawer once more. The faintest whisper of air escaped it. Not a voice, just a sigh, like something deeply content. Nancy noticed. "He's still here," she murmured. Earl nodded. Let him sleep. The wind outside picked up, pushing the last of the fog off the lot. The sign buzzed, flickered once, and steadied. Nancy's Diner, open 24 hours. Earl watched the glow in the glass, the soft reflection of his own tired face beside hers. "Guess we made it through another one," he said. Nancy sipped her coffee. "We always do." For a while they stood in the stillness, side by side. Two old souls guarding a place that didn't belong to the world anymore. Outside, the road stretched on forever, gray turning gold, promising more travelers, more stories, more nights to survive. Earl flipped the open placard to face the road. The chain swung once, clicked softly, and stilled. And somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, faint but certain, the diner's heartbeat answered. If you ever find yourself driving a lonely stretch of highway and see a flickering neon sign that reads, "Open 24 hours," maybe keep driving. Because some places don't close for a reason. Some doors don't stay unlocked for us. They stay unlocked for them. And if you do go in, and the coffee tastes a little too thick, and the cook never looks up from the griddle when you order, be polite. Don't ask for the special. Just eat your eggs. Tip well. And when you leave, don't look back. Because out there in the dark, there are creatures who still remember the one diner that served them without fear. And they're hungry for more than food. If you enjoyed tonight's story, it means the world if you leave a like. It keeps the fire burning here at Campfire Horror Stories. Tell me in the comments, would you stop at Nancy's Diner if you saw that sign in the dark? And if you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next story waiting just beyond the headlights. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't order from the night menu.